Hello, warm welcome to all participants, delegates on the second day of Conclave for an important session on the topic, emotional fitness for coaches to support clients. I think emotional fitness is a critical area for all of us as coaches. We have so many questions. What is the impact of emotions on a coach and in the coaching process? How does emotional fitness manifest for a coach? How can coaches build their own long-term emotional fitness as they support others through difficult emotions? Join this session, highly useful for coaches, and also experience a mini workout. Listen to a seasoned coach and an emotional fitness instructor share their experiences. Before I introduce the speakers to the session, few logistics. Please post your question and answers in question and Q&A section, and we'll also keep sharing your feedback in the chat window. We will try to address as much questions as possible soon after the presentation. I'm very happy and thrilled to introduce our speakers of the session, Abu Dishabi and Darren Duguay. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. We are so proud to have you here. Let me introduce Abu Dishabi. Abu has been working as a coach and a trainer since late 1990s. He has worked with executives and the teams from organizations all over the world. He has played a leading role in coaching profession both in the UK and internationally, and is a regular speaker in European coaching circuit and a contributor to several coaching journals and publications. Abu has trained thousands of coaches all over the world and teaches master classes across Europe. He is also the faculty of Henley Business School, where he lectures in coaching and behavioral change, where he plays an active role in Henley's Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Abudi, hearty welcome. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Pramod, and welcome everybody. You know, I was just sharing with Pramod and the others before that I was in Chennai like 30 years ago when I still had hair and I was young, but now I'm an old man in London, and it's a real privilege to be here with you from across the miles thanks to the glories of technology, which of course weren't existent when I was in Chennai. So we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at the topic of emotional fitness, and my session is going to basically be based around a few slides with some reflections for us, and then we'll go into Darren's session, which will be a bit of a workout. So two quite different flavors, which I hope you'll find valuable and interesting. So I'm going to now start sharing my presentation with you. This is a slightly new format for me, but I think we've got it cracked, so hopefully everything should be smooth. Here we go. It's just coming up now. So, emotional fitness for coaches. I suppose the first thing we should be thinking about is, what do we mean by emotional fitness? And I think this is a question that we could spend hours or days thinking about. What does it mean when we talk about emotional fitness? And I think I don't really have a specific answer to this. I think everybody will have their own responses to this. And as I said, you know, my slides are meant to provoke reflection. So you might be thinking for yourselves already, what do you mean when you think about emotional fitness? Of course, I've got some ideas I want to share with you, but it's also really a chance for all of us to be reflecting about, what do we mean by this? Does it mean, for instance, always being content? Does it mean being happy, regardless of the circumstances? Does it mean what to you? What immediately comes to mind? Because I think this is a really critical question for us as coaches to be with. And, you know, when I started coaching 25 years ago, a long time ago, there was a whole school of thought in the coaching profession that said there's no space for emotions in coaching. Emotions are the part of emotions are the territory of psychotherapy. Coaching is for winners who want to perform better. And then there was a school of thought that said, you know, if a client would come with an inverted commas negative emotion, we should help them see the world more positively. So even in 25 years, which isn't a very long time, I mean, it's a long time in the sense of the history of coaching, the question of what we mean by emotional fitness might have changed. And I certainly remember when I started coaching, there was a whole swathe of coaches who would say things like, emotional fitness means being solid, in good shape, and always having a positive outlook on life. Thankfully, that has changed. It's become more nuanced, but the question is still live for us. And as the world continues to evolve, and all of us have been trapped in various stages of lockdown during the pandemic, we've certainly become present to a lot more need in the coaching profession, as I see it, to be able to support our clients who are going through very difficult times at the same time as we are going through difficult times. There's nobody that has been immune from the lockdown. And, you may not have seen this if you haven't lived in the UK, but in the last 6 months, our Queen lost her husband of 70 years. And, she is the highest status person in the land. And there were pictures of her at the funeral of her husband, sitting by herself, wearing a mask. So nobody has been untouched by the pandemic. Everybody has been in this very strange, often quite difficult place. So emotional fitness isn't even something that has an answer that never changes. It's always evolving. For me, I think a very simple way to think about emotional fitness is the capacity to be there with our clients in their emotions. This is easier said than done, I think. What does it mean to be there with our coaches in their emotions? Well, for me, it means the capacity to allow my coaches to express whatever emotions they're experiencing without being in a hurry to move them on, without having to fix it or help them find an inverted commas better emotion or a more positive emotion, but actually allowing them to be there with their emotions and for us to be able to hold that space. And I think that is the emotional fitness that a coach needs to develop. It's an ongoing process. I don't think there's a state where we can go, I've got there. And for me, one of the questions that I think is useful to think about is, how do I know when it's hard for me to be there with my coachee in an emotion that they're experiencing? And one of the places that I look is in my own being. And, and maybe you have this experience outside of coaching as well, that sometimes you're engaged in something and you feel yourself being very open to it. You're sort of embracing it. And other times you're present to something and you feel yourself contracting or wanting to disagree or closing in some way. And I think if I'm with a client and when they're speaking or they're inside or having an emotional experience, I am not able to just be expansive or embracing of it, but instead I want to close it down or I want to move away from that emotion that tells me there is work to be done to develop my fitness. The very simplistic example might be, I'm just reaching in my pocket for something. If my client starts crying and I say to them, here, have a handkerchief or a tissue, don't cry, there's work for me to do around my own sadness. Because if I was emotionally fit in the territory of sadness, I'd be able to say to the coachee, be sad. It's okay to be sad, and starting to get curious about what does your sadness have to tell you about what you're experiencing or how you feel about the situation. As soon as I close down, it tells me there's work to be done. So what gets in the way? The coaching context. Often we're working inside performance coaching or business coaching, and there's an expectation often that there's no place for emotions in the workplace, or some emotions are better than others, some emotions are not legitimate. Some of this is gendered. Some of the women clients I work with tell me that they're not allowed to be angry in the workplace, whereas men are allowed to be angry. So there's a sort of historical narrative that might be there, which is the how have we been shaped. There's positive thinking, and like I say, in the early days, coaching was all about positive thinking, I believe. And I think it's still there today. We still live in what Barbara Ehrenreich calls the cult of mandatory optimism. We've always got to be cheerful. And as I've been saying, during the pandemic, we've certainly had the experience for all of us as feeling lost or frightened or worried, or we've lost loved ones, or we've thought, when are we ever going to be able to leave our homes? I live in this nice house that you can see behind me, but I live on my own. So for some of the pandemic, I was sat here in this beautiful room by myself, feeling really low and quite lonely at times. And so were my clients. There's no space for positive thinking there. There's nothing I could do to cheer myself up and go, let me put a happy spin on it. It was tough, and it's tough for lots of people. And the other thing that gets in the way is how have we been shaped? So, as I said, if I can't be with sadness, and my father used to tell me, for instance, boys don't cry, men don't cry. That shapes me in a particular way that makes it harder for me to be with sadness than if I was allowed to be sad. So what we're going to do now is to start thinking about ourselves, because, my supervisor is Edna Murdoch, who runs the Coaching Supervision Academy. Some of you may have heard of it, but she's a senior leader in the field of coaching supervision. And what she says is who we are is how we coach. And what I take that to mean in this territory is that it's our own emotional life that most impacts my capacity to work with emotions in coaching. This isn't about developing skills and techniques. Sometimes a client will say to me, what's the technique for when a coachee is sad or fearful or angry? I don't know. It's not like there's a simple answer to this, but can I be with them? And that's my own emotional life that shapes my capacity to work with them. It's nothing to do with the skills or techniques or books that I've read. It's to do with myself. There's a quote from an American insurance broker, of all people, called Bill O'Brien, and he says, the success of any intervention depends upon the inner condition of the intervener. And that's what we're talking about when we think about emotional work in coaching. It's the inner condition. What is my own emotional condition? What emotions do I allow myself to access? What emotions am I not allowed to? Some of this we don't even know until we start to look. So let's start to take a look. How were you shaped? And I'm going to leave you with some questions. Oh, where's my presentation gone? It's disappeared. Let me bring it back again. I don't know what happened there. Sorry about that. It just disappeared. I don't know if it was something I did or something that just happened by virtue of the internet. Here we go. So what I'd like you to do for a few moments is think about these questions. You might want to make notes or take a screen grab for further reflection, because these answers and questions might take a while to sit with. But how were you shaped? What emotions did you learn growing up? Like I said, my father would tell me, boys don't cry. That shaped me in a particular way. What emotions were available or not available? There are some families where there's a lot of fear, but there might not be much joy. There are other families where, later on in life, people will say, oh, we had a very calm family. No one ever got angry. Well, that might have meant that anger isn't available. I'm not saying that people should be angry, but if anger wasn't expressed, it might have shaped you in a particular way. What emotions were allowed or not allowed? Boys don't cry. Girls don't get angry. Don't be afraid. Be a man. Be kind. Whatever it is, these experiences have shaped us. So I'd like you to take a moment in quiet reflection just to think about how you were shaped in all of these three different areas. What emotions you learned, what was available, not available, what was allowed, not allowed, and how does this shape you as a coach? How has your life history in the emotional space shaped you as a coach? And like I say, I'd like you to just sit with that question for some moments of quiet reflection. Please feel free, as I said, to do a screen grab or make a note of the questions, because these are questions that we can continue to ask ourselves. It's not like it's a one-time thing. And although this session isn't interactive, as Pramod said, at the end of the session, there'll be a chance for Q&A. So if you have questions or reflections that come from what you gain from doing this exploration, this very brief exploration, then we can take a look at them a little bit later. But this, for me, is the heart of how we start to understand our emotional fitness as coaches. It's all about how we've been shaped. And Sir John Whitmore, who many of you will know as the founder of the GROW method of coaching, for instance, he said the difference between a good coach and a great coach is ongoing work on yourself. If an emotion is difficult for me, then it means that I need to do some work on that in myself. I might need to find a way to connect with my sadness, find a way to be at peace with anger, which might mean quite deep work. It might mean going to psychotherapy, for instance, or group psychotherapy. Certainly, I think a first step would be supervision. When I find something difficult in my coachee, an emotion is difficult for me to engage with, or find myself contracting or closing down, as I said, then it's a chance for me to go to my supervisor, which, as I said, is Edna Murdoch up there, and start talking about it. I found it hard to be with my client when she was angry. Great. That's the beginning of the inquiry. How might I have been shaped? What does it say about me? Who we are is how we coach. So this is about me. It's not about my client being angry. How can I work on myself in order to allow my client to be angry without closing down to it, so that I can be a space where she or he can be free to express whatever's going on for them? This slide was duplicated. So this is really the end of my session. It is to leave you with questions. You're welcome to connect with me via any of those methods up there. I believe there's a reading list up here, which I hope you'll get the PDFs later, because there's plenty of reading that can be done. I'm not really trying to brag, but there is a chapter that I've written in the Jonathan Passmore book, Using Emotions in Coaching, which covers all that I've been saying in greater depth if you're interested to find out more about this. But if I'm going to leave you with anything, it is this quote of Sir John Whitmore's, which was put twice because it's a very good quote. The difference between a good coach and a great coach is ongoing work on yourself. So please, this isn't a technique. This is an ongoing process of working on the self that we are, so that we can be a space for our coaches to show up fully as they are, with whichever emotion they bring. So I'm going to wrap up for now. Obviously, I'll be back for the Q&A, but I want to hand over to Darren, who's going to take us into some kind of workout, which I am very fascinated to witness as well. So I will pause for now and hand you over to Darren. I don't know if Pramod's going to introduce you first, Darren, but I will stop sharing for now.
Thank you, Abudi. I don't know, like, you really put me into an emotional state. Right? I really started reflecting on my emotions while I'm growing up. I think it's really, I'm some kind of lost now. Let me introduce Darren for taking to the next step on this one. Thank you. Okay. Now let's hear from Darren Duguay. Here is a quick introduction about Darren. Darren graduated from Mount Allison University with a Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Education as well as from Canadian Land Force Command College as a mature student. Upon return from Afghanistan in 2011, he returned back to school in 2012 with Emotional Fitness Institute to receive his emotional fitness coach and instructor certification. He's a former community college instructor for 8 years and has completed 27 years service in the Canadian Armed Forces. He is also a naturopath consultant. As an emotional fitness educator for 8 years, Darren leverages his personal, educational, and leadership background to educate and train the tools of emotional fitness to pivot, navigate, and succeed through life and business. Darren is a veteran Toastmaster, spoke at a World Summit entitled Find Your Voice Summit 1, and he is a co-author of a book 1 with a chapter entitled Connect Within, Trauma is Our Friend. Welcome, Darren. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Pramod and Abudi. I loved your presentation. Excellent. And I look forward to reading your references and following up with you. I'd like to, first of all, thank everyone from the ICF India Conclave who has worked extremely hard bringing everybody together. And thanking the 41 people who's hopped on this particular session where there's so much variety in this conclave and being part with us today. So thank you so much. Pramod, I believe you have the slide deck or the presentation. Can you bring up my PDF, please? Pramod, thank you so much. You're a gentleman. Emotional fitness, or in the business world, when working with coaches, leaders, organizations, E-fitness, kind of interchangeable. You'll notice that it's a registered trademark R. Those tools are trademarked in Canada by the founder and creator of emotional fitness, Warren Redman. And by golly, Abudi, he's from the UK and spent lots of time in London on the train and developed and wrote a lot of his work. It's also, I hear, a great place that loves football. Next, please. What is fitness? And how fit are we? That's a question that I asked myself after I came back from Afghanistan 2011, and by that time 45 years tried to define fitness strictly on a physical and mental plane, and discovered after I surrendered in Kabul, Afghanistan on or about July 26th, the connection to something called spiritual fitness. And taking a year to transition, I ended up connecting with something called emotional fitness when I met Warren at a coffee shop on or about October of 2012. It was at that particular moment when I was able to be listened to, and better yet, and Abudi touched on it so nicely, about connecting and listening to our own experiences and therefore shaping us, or recognizing just how unfit I am. So as I invite you to take a look at this particular logo, you'll notice that there are 4 very distinctive colors on the outside. I am a very proud Indigenous Aboriginal person and grasping my roots of being Indigenous. And within that, and the circle of health, it talks about physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, 4 very separate key parts. Just imagine for a second if I was to try to sit on a chair that was a 4-legged chair, but I decide that I'm going to loosen one leg or maybe get rid of that leg altogether. What's it going to be like if I try to sit on a 4-legged chair using 3 legs? What's it going to be like if I try to sit on a 4-legged chair using 2 legs? Well, something's going to happen, and it may not feel very pleasant. It's like actually something I experienced through my own personal journey. So when I invite and ask yourself, fitness, one takeaway I invite you to take a look at is fitness has at least 4 very separate key parts: physical, mental, spiritual, and as Abudi touched on nicely, emotional fitness. Iceberg. When we look at the iceberg theory and we look at our client, and I know a number of you are professionals and working with clients, how much of the client do I really see? Tip of the iceberg theory. And so what percentage do I see? What percentage of the client do I not see? What percentage of myself as an individual, as a coach, do I recognize or am aware of? And what percentage am I not aware of? So what does my own individual iceberg look like? So how fit are we as coaches, professionals? And as Abudi touched on very nicely, being aware that our own experiences shape us and therefore could potentially influence, and maybe not necessarily in the right way, when supporting our clients. As Abudi touched on so nicely, the importance of doing our own individual work is absolutely critical and paramount. So thank you, Abudi, for really touching on a lot of those very key points. Next slide, Pramod. So as I mentioned about the 4 different colors, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, some of you may be familiar with the terminology, especially if you're in mathematics, the quotient, the mathematical quotient. Or when I ask myself, well, what does my own personal, professional, physical quotient, PQ, mental quotient, MQ, SQ, spiritual quotient, EQ, emotional quotient. What does my own or my client's PQ, MQ, SQ, EQ look like? And I know there's additional pieces to that as we go along. Quotient. Next slide, please. So EQ, or emotional quotient, as you may have accustomed through your studies, there's been some really great work done, especially in the Western part, actually all across the globe. So in the Western world, some of you may be familiar with the work of emotional intelligence, the work of Daniel Goleman. So Daniel Goleman and team put emotional intelligence really on the roadmap, but there was some stuff done before Daniel Goleman. But Daniel Goleman and his team did an incredible job bringing forth emotional intelligence. So that really, a lot of it was happening in the States. Well, in the other part of the world, in the UK, Abudi, back to you, playing football and otherwise, but emotional fitness, the creation and the work of Warren Redmond since 1984. And really happened when he was listened to himself by a survivor of the Auschwitz concentration camp called Eugene Heimler. Heimler went on and founded something in the Middle East and in UK called the Heimler Institute of Social Functioning, and developing some scales so we could actually quantitatively score and measure. So emotional quotient is emotional intelligence plus emotional fitness plus something else, but there's so much to the EQ, or the hidden part of our iceberg, and a part of that iceberg. Much like playing football in the UK, imagine what it would be like if, as a fan, we showed up at a stadium to watch a football game, but there was only one team that marched out on the field. It's important to recognize there are many different pieces. So to really grasp the emotional quotient, it's to grasp emotional intelligence plus the tools of emotional fitness and anything else that is being innovated and developed. Pramod, next slide, please. Well, let's go through a little bit of an activity here. I'm going to invite everybody to grab a piece of paper and pen. Pramod, if you could join me on stage, that would be absolutely wonderful, my friend. If it's possible, we could have both you and I on stage. Awesome. Pramod, thank you very much.
Yep.
So I'm going to, if it's okay with yourself, Pramod, you and I are going to go through a little bit of a workout. Is that okay?
Sure, definitely. Fine. I'm there.
Okay. Awesome. So I'm going to, well, at the same time, everybody who's joined us, we have 32 people with us at the present time. I'm going to invite everybody who's actually observing this particular session to join us for this workout, or this emotional fitness workout. And we're going to use a little taste and sampling of a tool. This was derived from something called the life scale or work scale, which were really subsequently derived also from the scale of social functioning. So here's 4 different questions. So at the present moment, I'm going to invite everybody to just kind of take a deep breath in and let it out. And now let's get into our fitness routine. Are you ready, Pramod?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to invite you, Pramod, to go through and score yourself in this moment. So yourself personally in this moment. On a scale of 0 to 20, 0 being low, 20 being high. Somewhere in the middle is a 10. I'm going to invite you to go through and read each question. And when you read the question, score yourself between 0 and 20. Whatever number comes up for you within the first 2 seconds or so. Anything beyond that, then our head gets in the way. So that first number that comes up for you. If you read a question and you're not sure what it means, my invitation is for you to interpret what the question means for yourself in this moment. And I'm going to invite everybody in the audience to do the same sort of thing. So Pramod, please go ahead and score yourself. You're going to notice that there is a left column for number 1 and 3, and there's a right column for number 2 and 4, with a total at the very bottom of your left column, which is really the summation of 1 and 3, and number 2 and 4. And Pramod, just give me a thumbs up when you're ready to share your score, please. Thank you, my friend. Wow, that was a quick workout. That was a quick warm up.
Yeah,
Pramod, can you share your score?
Yeah, you said within 2 seconds, right? So no further processing to require, right? So what I get come to mind in, but I don't know whether any involvement from my brain on this course, but I would ready to share the score. Can I?
I would love for you to share the score, and everybody else in the audience, I'm sure, would love to have you share your score as well. Pramod, please do.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'll share my score, question 1, 2, 3, 4, and then summary, right? So first one I scored 15, and second one 5, third 15, fourth 5. So I get a score of 30 and 10.
Pramod, what does a score of 30 and 10 mean for you or represent for you?
It represents to me that I still have some work to do on my own emotional, or I still need to do some more reflections on myself. Other side, I feel like I'm quite satisfied with my life.
So I have some more work to do, while at the same time I'm satisfied with my life.
Yeah.
What does some more work look like?
It's about more of awareness, as Abudi said, that I need to reflect on these questions which have been told what is conditioned for me. The session, I mean, I'm really thinking, like, if I have a client who get angry with me, will I be able to manage that? If it is not, it is about me, it is not about that person. And being aware of that, it is being about me, and then working on to handle it, right? I'm really clueless about that one, but I can really see that is something really great or important work I need to do as a coach to support anybody's emotion.
And Pramod, if I heard about I'm satisfied with my life, what does satisfied with life feel like?
I'm sorry, I could not catch the question clearly. Once again.
Sure. What I heard about that you're satisfied with life. What does satisfied with life feel like?
Satisfied with life means to me, for me, like, I came from a very low background, or very poor middle class background, and to this position where I am now in, it's quite satisfactory for me. The kind of a growth I have gone through all these years and the position which I've reached now, I feel proud myself. I give a lot of satisfaction on who I am now, kind of impact which I'm making in my circle. I'm quite happy with that now. Am I ambitious? Yes, I am. But that doesn't mean that I'm not satisfied now. I'm not sure, Darren, is it answering your question, but I'm just saying whatever comes in my mind on these questions.
So Pramod, are you answering your own question about what satisfied life feels like?
Sorry, what is that?
So I was asking you if you feel you answered your own question around my life is satisfied, that I feel satisfied with my life.
Yes, yeah.
Pramod, at this present time, if I was to invite you to summarize the essence, as if you were to write it on a little postage stamp that you would put on a letter, but if you were to make a couple notes to yourself and summarize what came up for you for this little bit of a taste, little sampler, what would that summary look like?
What comes to me now is that I think it's more of, I have a lot to learn, lot to understand. I'm really feeling like I just got stuck with a very big iceberg in front of me, and I'm just seeing only tip of it. I really need to explore myself more. I'm at very, very curious stage, and I'm just really wondering that why I have not done any work on this so far. Right? How do I go and support my coaches if I don't be fit emotionally? I think that's all coming up at this point of time now for me.
Okay. So Pramod, I feel that I need to do more work on me as a coach.
Yeah, that's correct.
So
yeah.
what's next for you? What do you feel is your action plan at the present moment? What's next for Pramod in terms of I need to work more on myself?
I'm really clueless, Darren. But I have some thought process, but that I need to go and grab some of the books which you said, and Abudi was sharing. So I need to really go through it, and then probably like I don't know, and probably this is one of the questions also I have for both of you. That what is the next step? See, this is not something which I can develop. It is more of awareness, and then I don't know. Maybe we might need to get a coach for ourselves to reflect upon. See, because we will not be able to, these are blind spots for us, right? It's not being visible for us unless there is somebody who's ready to show to us. It might be challenging. That's what I'm present to.
Pramod, thank you very much for being a brave participant today, stepping up and willing to get a little bit of a warm up in emotional fitness. And you're right, there are resources and materials, and Abudi had mentioned a couple of his resources and materials. The resources are available by all means. So Pramod, can you move to the next slide, please?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so support available. Well, there is something available. There is support available. Abudi shared an excellent presentation and shared some excellent resources. First of all, everybody that's on the call today, 38, I believe, I'm going to offer everyone a 15-minute complimentary connection where you get a chance to listen to yourself. As Abudi touched on so nicely, I need to be able to connect with my own inner self, how I have been shaped. I need to be able to do that first and foremost before I'm able to do it with the client. So a 15-minute complimentary session, everyone. There is a website, emotionalfitness.academy. It's got linkages to LinkedIn and a YouTube channel. So if you go to the Emotional Fitness Academy YouTube channel, there's lots of educational resources there. There's a series of different books available. If you need to get a hold of me, there's my email address and a phone number. Long distance charges could potentially be expensive, so please start with texting. And I am looking forward to connecting with everybody. Pramod, back to you, my friend.
Thank you. I'll stop the sharing, then I'll listen whether anybody has any questions on that, right? Great. Thank you. Thank you, participants. So if you have any questions, you can post in the Q&A session. But really, I have a question here, Abudi, for you first. I mean, your session was really taken me to a level. I was thinking about myself and what is the emotions, which is really, I was, while growing up, what was impacted me. I can really connect this. It's kind of a blind spot for us, right? So how do we get to know that, how do that self-awareness can be brought into attention for a coach? I mean, unless this session, I was not really aware of, I need to be aware of my emotions.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose I would say that it kind of connects to what I said about when we're with somebody, with a client, for instance, and we notice ourselves closing down or wanting to fix their emotion or contracting or feeling uncomfortable, it can point us to an area for further exploration. I mean, self-awareness is a little bit tricky in the sense that, if I go on a journey of self-awareness, how do I know where to look? I'm sort of, as the cliche has it, I'm blind to my blindness or ignorant of my ignorance. But I can know when I feel uncomfortable with something, or I feel contracted with something or somebody. And that can be a pointer to maybe there's something for me to take a look at. The other thing I think that can help us as coaches to develop awareness is supervision. The opportunity to reflect on practice. And maybe one way to do it is to record yourself coaching and listen to it with the supervisor and have the supervisor explore what was happening for you, Pramod, at that moment, or this moment, or that moment. Or I noticed you taking an intake of breath when the client said this, or I noticed this look on your face when the client said that. So someone else's eyes can help us to see things that we might not see. But, because I think this is one of the paradoxes. We talk about self-awareness and self-development and all of those things. But actually, I think part of the reason that coaching works and is helpful is I can't be self-aware without someone to point out to me the way I do things, because I just do things the way I do them. And then someone says, did you notice that when you were talking about your manager, you started to look away, or you did this, or you did that? So we need our eyes outside ourselves to help us develop self-awareness, I think.
Amazing, thank you. But then another follow-up question, or maybe Dan, you can also pitch in on this topic. I think both of your common topic on this one. So your ideas also like really enriching for the participants. One point again, Bodhi, what you have talked about is really liked it, or the positive emotions, right? The kind of a we might feel negative at times, and that's okay. That's being part of human, right? And you don't need to put up a positive face all the time. I think it's relieving for us, as a human being, we are also go through that emotions, and which is not just a positive, negative emotions, and you just need to be not to be only on positive side of it, right?
I think so. I mean, I would say that it's unhelpful for us as human beings to think about positive and negative emotions.
Okay.
Because it then means that we don't listen to negative emotions. And a great example for me of that is during the financial crisis. Before it happened, a lot of American bankers were fired or not promoted because they said the bubble will burst. And people were saying, we don't want negative emotions here. But maybe if we'd listened to them, we wouldn't have got into the mess that we did. That's just one example for me of how unhelpful it is to, if you like, organize emotions into negative and positive.
Okay. Darren, do you have any thought process around it? Because our own negative emotions, or kind of emotions would even comes in our way of coaching, right? Like, for example, I'll just try to put an example. If I've gone through a very tragic incident in my childhood, and if my coach is going to come up a similar incident to me, I think I would be in a totally different kind of emotion at that moment of time, because it connects to me at this point of time, right?
Absolutely, Pramod. That's an excellent question. Excellent point. And Abudi touched on it nicely. I can only share a little bit about what some of my childhood experiences have shaped me, and really avoided that until at the age of 45. And first of all, I experienced childhood sexual abuse. I lost my dad to suicide at the age of 12. I put a uniform on through cadets about 6 months afterwards. And I was a really good person at addictive behaviors. So my addictive behaviors was a way that I was able to survive as a kid, but I wasn't dealing with all the stuff that was going on within me until it was time for me to take the uniform off and really connect with what was going on. A great point that was brought up, Pramod, was, if I have a client in front of me who is sad or upset or mad or so on and so forth, as Abudi touched on, how do I, as a coach, react? Is there something within me that's triggered? Am I therefore, as a result of me being triggered as a coach, am I potentially getting myself out of that space of facilitating a framework of holding space for a client to go through what they need to go through? So the importance of doing my own inner work as a coach is absolutely crucial. Recognizing my own triggers, my ahas, and continuing to do my own work, as was mentioned at the very beginning. So I also talked briefly about positive and negative. We had a chance to taste a little bit about a scale, life scale, and there are positive or satisfaction scores. That's the left column, and there's negative or frustration scores on the right-hand column. The beautiful thing about negative or frustrations is that is the spot of my creative self. So if there's any emotions I really want to get up close with and process, it is my frustrations, with the support of a coach or with the support of expertise like Abudi, to allow oneself to connect with that frustration and recognize that, wow, my creative solutions have just taken place. That's a beautiful spot to be in. Not pleasant, not comfortable, but important if I desire as a coach to take myself where I feel I'm being spiritually guided to be. So I hope that kind of answers the question.
Yes. Thank you. I think you have also brought up another very, very important point here. That, I mean, like, I really admire the answer, the authentic and very honest answer you have given. That actually means they go about, our acceptance about ourselves also as a coaches, right? We should be able to be vulnerable to share those things back to our coaches, or to reflect on it, to be okay to share with another person to see what to be worked on. Thank you. We have got a question from Dinesh Angapan. I'll just share you on the stage that question. His question is interesting. Improvement in physical fitness is explicit. How to know and realize the improvement in emotional fitness? Maybe I can take both of your view on this question, please.
I suppose, thank you for the question, Dinesh. I suppose I would say that one way to recognize improving or developing emotional fitness is just the capacity to be with a wider range of emotions. It sounds vague, but if I'm able to be with a client in an emotion that I wasn't previously able to be with, that for me is a sign of development. And I would also say that there's nowhere to get to. This is a lifetime's work, and as Darren was sharing, I mean, I also come from family trauma. These things shape us, and they make me sensitive to some things, but there's other work I need to do to continue to develop my fitness. But I notice, as the work I've done on myself over the last 40 or 50 years, I have a wider range of capacity than I did before. That's how I would measure it. I don't know what you would like to add to that, Darren.
Yeah, thank you for that, Abudi, and thank you very much for the question. Well, I do know conventionally, there are tools and measures developed to measure physical fitness. So, for example, I'm a kind of a passionate runner. So I can put my Garmin on and measure how fast I'm running and how fast it's going to take me to do a 5-kilometer run. So I got a tool I can measure that. I do also know that there are tools to measure the MQ quantitatively. So there's intelligence aptitude tests and so on and so forth. So one of the tools for myself that I've used through my journey is, in fact, a little taste of what Pramod shared, and that is the life scale. And much like for me to daily dedicate a workout in my physical fitness, it's important for me to dedicate my daily work in my emotional fitness. So for me to be able to wake up in the morning and for me to score myself, where am I at today quantitatively? Where do I want to go? What does that gap look like? And then the partner, as Abdudi talked about very nicely, to partner with someone else who can be the support through a partnership and be able to identify some of the things that might happen for myself physically because of how my body physically responds. So I tear up, or my eyes turn red, or I flush. I might not see that. But that's the beauty about the coaching partnership, is that a coach might be able to detect that. I noticed that your eyes went bloodshot. Can you share a little bit about what was happening at that moment? I noticed that you crossed your arms. Can you share? So that the non-verbal communication and cues is absolutely crucial. And I may not be able to recognize what those cues are for myself, especially if I'm working through things like trauma. And if there's anything that the pandemic and COVID-19 during the last 18 plus months has done, there's been some significant trauma that's taken place. I may not recognize that by partnering with a professional and with a coach to be able to visually see those cues is a real gift. And I'll touch briefly also, Pramod, regarding vulnerability. If I'm not prepared to be vulnerable as a coach, how could I ever possibly expect my client to be vulnerable?
Awesome.
Yeah, I would absolutely say if there's one thing to take away from this session, it's if we're not prepared to be vulnerable as coaches, how can we expect our clients to be vulnerable? I think that's beautifully put, Darren.
Amazing. Thank you so much for those answers. I think it's really eye-opener. Maybe another question which I have is, again, if you are supporting a client and all of a sudden you really see a very outburst of emotions, very maybe extreme emotions in kind of like maybe suicidal or some of those kind of a very far-fetched emotions or something like, or maybe they are totally upset with something happened in their life or something. And probably I know you can be try to be there with an emotion as such, but probably you might need to do something much more than that immediately. Like, you have any suggestions or comments around it? Or because as a coaching, probably we might need to make them self-aware by asking questions, but in this kind of a situation probably you might need to do something more than that, right? I mean, I don't know if my questions are landing correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two levels to answer this, and I'm going to connect it with the question that Aparna has asked in chat, where she says, recently I was taken back by what I perceived as an aggressive manner in a new client during a session. How can I bring myself back to center in the next session? And I think for me, there's something about what do we as coaches do to keep resilient and emotionally fit? So there's a whole, obviously clients will trigger us. Darren pointed to it. Aparna's question points to it. So one of the things that we might do, Darren talks about going for a run. I might spend time in nature or meditate, or I'll talk to a good friend or my supervisor or my therapist. Resourcing ourselves as practitioners is really important. But I think there's a second part to that, and that's maybe what your question is pointing to, Pramod, which is about maybe the client needs help that coaching can't provide. I'm experienced trauma and I've had trauma therapy, and I know that there are some of my clients have trauma that I can't support them with. I'm not a therapist. I might be very sensitive to it. I might be able to allow them to express some of it, but actually they might need to have therapy, or they might have addictive issues that I can't support them with and need to go to a 12-step program. So I think there's something about knowing when to refer on. And if I don't know when to refer on, or I have any doubt, then that's the kind of conversation that I would say we should have with a supervisor who can help us to see what we might not see. Because I might think I can help someone, but actually I can't, and I might be doing damage to them. And if I make that decision by myself, that's more dangerous than if I talk it over with someone that I trust, like a supervisor.
I can touch briefly, Pramod, and yes. Thank you, Abudi, for your response to that one, and thank you for the question around what do I do to bring myself back to center before I get ready for the next session. I think, again, it's this is, first of all, not easy work. And there is a spiritual divine purpose and reason why we may find ourselves professionals and as coaches doing what we do today. There's a spiritual divine reason why. And it's to be able to always continuously be doing our own individual work. That should be a non-negotiable, especially in this field of work. There's a little saying I heard recently, and I hear it often. And it is, I much rather connect with someone who has experienced trauma, who has done their own work, than go see someone who cannot relate to me. So there's a gift and there's a beautiful opportunity. So I'll go back to the question, what do I do? I have my own sort of ritual. So being Mi'kmaq, I take the first 60 minutes of the day, non-negotiable self-care. I wake up with affirmations and gratitude. 7.5 hours of uninterrupted sleep, a nice glass of room temperature water with freshly squeezed organic orange. I smudge daily. I go into a meditation challenge. I journal. I go out and make sure that I'm fulfilling my physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, social, family needs daily. And eat healthy, and feed my soul, whatever that might look like. So those are some of the things that I do. What's important is that as individual coaches, we identify what is our own individual action plans in order for us to heal, grow, and to evolve. And I know that we're probably getting close to our time, Pramod. So in case I don't get a chance, I do want to pass on a huge thanks, Pramod, for facilitating and moderating the session. Budi, I loved your session, and for everybody who joined us today, it was awesome.
I echo that. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I think we have one more time for one more question. Let me just bring up this one. So I think you have answered this, but still I just wanted to show up this question here from Vibhu. We can build muscle through daily and regular practice. What daily practice, regular practice can increase EA and social intelligence? This is exactly probably, Darren, your answers connect to, right?
Well, actually, what I'll do is I'll go back to the offering I had done, because I feel in this particular practice, social responsibility is a huge, important piece. Anybody who has any specific questions, please reach out. Love to connect. Love to be able to listen, so that you're able to identify your answer to your question.
And I'll add something to that, which for me, improving social intelligence, for me, one of the things that I say to leaders whom I coach, and I think this is true of us as coaches, because we can get projected as being the people who help others with their problems, is go to a place where you're nobody. Go to a place where you're not the coach or the leader. You're just another human being, whether that's a synagogue or a temple or a 12-step meeting or the gym. Doesn't matter, or a dojo, just somewhere where you're another practitioner who isn't anybody special. Nothing helps us as coaches and leaders more than that humility of being another human being, rather than the person who can help others explore their lives.
It's amazing. Thank you, Budi and Darren, for that really words of wisdom. I think I have benefited a lot from this session. Amazing. Thank you so much. Really happy to have you here, and really thank you, our audience. I think there are questions which we could answer. There are some of them we could not, but I think there are a lot of good interaction with a very less number of people, but still it's really interactive and great session. Thank you, both of you, once again, for being part of this session and enriching us with your wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great to work with all of you.
Yeah, sure.